Hey everybody, it's Meredith Miller here with your Monday Sana Q&As, answering some more questions. The link is below. If you would like to leave a question for one of these upcoming sessions on Mondays, you can do so. If you have a more pressing matter, please check out my website, which is also listed below. You can check out my personal email support. I return that to you within 48 hours. If you're interested in having a strategy session, that's a 90-minute coaching session with me on Skype to anywhere in the world, you can check out that option on my website as well. And I also offer discounts for packages of 3 and 5 sessions. Feel free to check that out on innerintegration.com. So here's another question. This person says, I have a question about going no contact with my narcissistic neighbor. I went on 3 dates with him, and on the second date, I had an icky feeling in my gut about this guy. But I went on a 3rd date because maybe it was just my PTSD talking about my narcissist ex-husband. But after the 3rd date, the icky feeling grew stronger, and I decided to trust my feeling. What do you think is the best way to go no contact with the next door neighbor? I have not told him that I don't want to be friends anymore because I didn't want to cause a narcissistic injury, and I'm afraid how he'll react. So all I'm doing is taking all day to respond back to his texts with just 1-word replies. I'm not answering the phone when he calls. I'm not answering the front door when he knocks. I have been doing this for almost 2 months now, and he keeps contacting me every day like I'm his best friend, like I talk to him, and I don't for almost 2 months. It's really creepy. I want to tell him so badly to stop, but I'm afraid because I don't really know him and how he'll react, and he lives right next door to me. So that's really uncomfortable because you're neighbors. You know, do you own your home or are you renting? Can you move? Right? I'm going to give you some advice for how to deal with this, but the bottom line is like, how soon can you leave that area? Because it's probably going to get worse and not better. I'll tell you maybe a little bit about an experience I had with neighbors. It wasn't an intimate relationship. It was just neighbors, like sociopaths living next door. This guy that, you know, you're talking about, you're not responding, you're taking like all day, you're only giving 1-word answers, you're not answering the door, you know, indirectly you're trying to show him that you're not interested. He's not picking up on the social cues, and doesn't sound like this guy is autistic. Sounds like this guy is the psychopath type where they're not paying attention. They see your cues and they don't care. He's just trying to find a way to get in. So, you know, the subtle boundaries are not really working. It's been 2 months. He hasn't gotten the point yet. You're going to have to step it up. I would do something written. I would not have the conversation. I would not open your door to him. I wouldn't get caught even outside having the conversation with him. I would text or I would email to make the boundaries super clear. You know, something like, I realize I need to be more explicit because you seem to not understand that I'm not interested. So I'm going to make it really clear now. You know, I'm not feeling this connection. Do not contact me anymore. I wish you all the best. I would always end those communications with, I wish you all the best, because it sort of, you know, deflects the confrontation that's taking place, the bad news that you're delivering. It's like you're wishing him well in life, which is also a good thing to practice, you know, is to let these people go. Just wish them well. Know that people are going to deal with their own karma in life, but it doesn't hurt you in any way to wish the person well. And it kind of almost like removes their defense mechanisms from attacking you. Now, sociopath can easily turn around and attack you for that. A narcissist would do the same thing. They would, like you mentioned, you know, the narcissistic rage or the injury, right? And that is a danger that is there. But this guy's next door and he's not going away. So you're going to have to be more explicit. I would put that in writing and I would document it. Save the email, save the text message, print it out, put it in a file somewhere where you don't have to look at it every day on your device, but it's in a file that you're storing in case you need to escalate this and take it to the courts for a protection order. So the good thing is, because he's your neighbor, he knows where you live. So when you fill out the protection order, it's not going to be any problem for you to list your address on there because he already knows where you live. So that won't be an issue, which is an issue for a lot of people who are being stalked by someone who doesn't know where they live. In your situation, he's fully aware of that. So I would make it super clear. So you've made it very clear, I don't wish to have any more contact with you. Stop contacting me. Now, if he keeps contacting you, then you start to have documents here that you can take to the court. You've made it very clear to stop contacting you, and he's still contacting you. So, you know, if he's at your door, you need to make a note of that. If he's ringing your doorbell, make a note of that. If he's, you know, sending emails and texts and whatever after this point, just save all that, put it in a file, print all that stuff out. When you have enough stuff and he's just not stopping, just take that pile of evidence to your local police precinct or court and fill out the protection order so that he'll stop. The problem is that you live next door. I don't know what the protection order says in terms of like feet that he has to stay away from you. I don't know how complicated that gets, but that's like if you feel like you can't have any peace of mind and this guy just won't leave you alone. But at the same time, I would still be looking for a new place to live because it's probably not going to get any better. In fact, it usually gets a lot worse. And when you're living around that, it's incredibly intimidating. It's really, really awful because you end up just feeling violated all the time, like going in and out of your house. And then the enormous amount of PTSD triggering that causes. You know, every time you're going home, you're checking to see if he's waiting for you. Is he going to jump out of the bushes when you're walking from your car to the house or whatever? And, you know, concerned that he's spying into your windows and whatnot. I mean, the experience that I had with the narcissistic neighbors many years ago, I didn't even know what a narcissist was. I didn't know what a sociopath was. I didn't know who they were. I just knew that they were horrible and they were always violating my boundaries and somehow they were spying on me. I don't know how. This was in Philadelphia. We lived in row homes. So like, you know, literally like your wall is up against someone else's wall. There's no space between the houses. So it's conceivable that he could have drilled some kind of camera hole through the walls. I can't explain how this person knew what I was doing in real time because he, the next door neighbor, and then all of his cronies were mobbing, you know, outside my door, and they would be talking very loud that I could hear inside the house, and they would be talking about what I was doing. Like, I was so paranoid. I thought I was paranoid, right? But I was so freaked out that I taped black trash bags over my windows because I was like, how are they seeing me? How are they seeing in? Like, I had the curtains closed, but somehow they still knew. Taped black trash bags over the window, and they were still outside talking about what I was doing. So I'm sure they had some kind of camera inside. And this was like 2005, 4 or 5. I was really naive at the time. I had just gotten divorced, you know, from a narcissist. It was just a mess. Even when I went to sell my house, I had bought a house. So I couldn't just leave right away. I ended up staying there for a year and some after that, spending half the week in New York working and studying and then coming back just to try not to have to deal with it. Even when I went to sell my house, you know, they put a lockbox on your door and there's 4 numbers. You know, the combination of guessing that number combination is like 1 in more than a million. And I came back from one of those weekends in New York where I was at school. The lockbox is broken open, the key is missing. And I'm like, what the hell? So I'm on the phone, like talking to somebody about how my neighbors broke into this and blah, blah, blah. My neighbor comes out and he's like, got my keys. Like, yeah, I found it. It was just on the windowsill outside. Yeah, you got to be more careful with that lockbox. And I was like, you son of a bitch. You broke into there yourself. You know, clearly that's what they did. I don't know if they were listening when my realtor gave me the combination when she was sitting in my living room, or if somehow they broke this lockbox. I don't know what the situation was. All I know, and then when I was selling the house, you know, they wheel out, this is in Philly, you know, you have like stoops. They wheel out, you know, this giant cooler of like Coors Light or Bud Light, and they're all just kicking it on the stoop, drinking beers. And the realtor noted, you know, for the open house, you might want to be a little more cautious when your neighbors are wheeling out coolers of Bud Light. It's kind of deterring. You know, it was like they were just doing anything to make my life as miserable as possible. The only solution was to leave there. It was just every day I just felt violated. I didn't feel peace of mind in my own home. And that's probably how you feel right now. And it probably will get more uncomfortable as you make that boundary more clear, the no contact boundary, which is probably why you haven't been so clear, probably why you're being a little more subtle and, you know, afraid to say exactly what you want to say, you know, just kind of avoiding his text. And he's not getting the point. Like any normal person would get the point. You don't want to hang out, you don't want to contact him, but he's not getting the point, probably because he's a psychopath and he's going to keep pushing that. So, keep in mind that it's going to be like war probably at one point. He's probably not just going to walk away. If he does, then he's probably just a normal person, but you probably already know that's not the case. So, you're going to have to face that, unfortunately, because you got involved with this guy and he is your neighbor. But like I said, what happened with my neighbors, like we didn't even date, right? That was just like the bad luck of living next to these people. And for whatever reason, they decided to target me, probably because I was alone. Right? And I was very isolated, and they saw that I didn't have a lot of people coming in and out of my house, and I spent most of my time alone, right? So he's probably watching you, watching your activities. I would maybe start inviting a lot of people over, a lot of friends over, showing that you're not alone, showing that you're not isolated, showing that you're not afraid, showing that there are people in your life who are looking out for you and checking in on you. And if it's really bad and you really can't leave soon at all, I would consider looking into security system, into cameras outside your house, on the doors, somewhere, maybe even inside a hallway, just in case you're afraid this person would break in. I don't know who he is. I don't know how serious this is. I would be very careful, in these kinds of situations, like where you're stuck with the neighbor, or maybe for some people who are stuck with a coworker. One of these situations is like when you're at that point back at the beginning, right? Where you're like, is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea to get more involved, whether it be intimately or as a friendship, or some kind of personal relationship outside of work, or some kind of personal relationship with your neighbors. I would really take the time to think that through. In any future scenario, and anyone who's contemplating this right now, I would really think that through. Like, imagine, what if the worst case scenario happened? What if that person turned out to be a narcissist or a psychopath? How easy would it be for you to disentangle from their life as your neighbor or your coworker, or someone who, is in one of these circles with you? Like, what if it doesn't work out? What if it's the worst case scenario? And it's almost like if you have been surrounded by these people all your life in all sorts of different ways, intimate relationships and friendships and coworkerships, and, coming back from your family and all that, it's almost like you have to expect that this will show up on your radar at some point. And it may not be every person, but it's almost like you have to expect that this will show up. And it's really a good question to ask, I think. Like, what if this goes south? What if this goes bad? What are my exit strategies? What are my options? Can I leave the job? Can I leave the apartment? Can I leave this group dynamic, whatever that is? I would really, really consider that, and again, it doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. It can be as simple as like friendship, as two neighbors talking as friends. So I would be very cautious in letting people into your life, and take things very, very slowly and listen to your gut. You said at the beginning, what was it? Icky feeling, right? On the second date, you had an icky feeling. So your intuition knows. You know how to recognize these people. It's just that you doubted yourself because you didn't trust your intuition. Like, your intuition is your number one tool. You can read all of the red flags of the narcissist and the sociopath, and you can know them by heart, and you can be able to recite them intellectually. But I guarantee that when you are in the heat of the moment and you are facing this person and you have this intellectual list, your mind, even though you're seeing those red flags, your mind is still going to be rationalizing and giving the benefit of the doubt, and how, well, maybe that's not actually this red flag. Kind of looks like it, but it's not actually. Or is it really? Or did he really mean that when he said this and that, or when she did this and that? Like, I guarantee that in the moment, you're going to be second guessing yourself. You're going to be self-doubting, because that's how you've always done it. No matter how much you know intellectually, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's still going to be very difficult. Your number one tool is your intuition. Number one. Because none of those red flags are even gonna matter if you don't listen to your intuition, because your mind can find a way to rationalize why it's okay, to make an excuse for why it's okay and why you should give them the benefit of the doubt, and it could land you in big, big trouble. You can be in a lot of danger. So more than anything else, listen to your intuition. You know now your intuition is accurate. You knew. Unfortunately, it was too late, right? But you knew by that point. You just let it go on, you let it go on. So recognize that you know what that intuitive feeling is. So anytime you meet a new person, check in with yourself. right? For you, it's an icky feeling, right? So when you meet a new person and you're hanging out with them, check in. How do I feel right now? And if you even have a little bit of that icky vibe, I would immediately take a distance from that person. Okay, gotta go. Got a lot of stuff going on. It's nice to meet you. And just take off, you know, or if you go on a first date with a person and you immediately get that icky feeling at the end of the date, there's that awkward moment where it's kind of like, all right, see you later or see you soon. Instead of saying any of that stuff, or I think sometimes maybe a lot of guys might feel pressured into saying something like, I'll give you a call, you know, but you're not actually interested in seeing that person again. Don't say those things at the end, because you're just going to lead that person on to believe, you know, that there might be another step, but there actually isn't. Just be really honest, but in a compassionate way. So it's like almost, you know, if you were imagining you were being rejected by someone, how would you want them to do it in a compassionate but explicit way that you understood not to keep trying anymore? You know, it's like at the end of the day, like, it was really nice to meet you. It was great to hear your story. And, you know, I'm just not feeling the connection, but I wish you all the best, right? That way you're not leading the person on, and you're not then having to deal with them texting and calling and you want them to stop. And then, you know, you answer one-word replies and you take a really long time. And like that kind of stuff could actually keep a person hooked there, thinking that there's an opportunity, but after 2 months, this guy's just not taking the social cues. He's not getting it, which means he has an agenda. Like, he wants to have contact with you. He's not listening to your subtle boundaries. You need to make it more explicit. Like, I think often we really struggle with that. I think maybe more women too, is like we struggle to explicitly communicate that we're not interested. We don't want to hurt the person's feelings and blah, blah, blah. But really, it's just a lot easier if you, I mean, it's a lot easier for the resolution of things if you are just explicitly direct. You know, with compassion, I don't mean being rude and mean or, you know, anything like that, but explicit, that there's no doubt there. You've made things really clear, and that way you don't have to second guess yourself and the person just keeps coming back. You know, and they're just not listening to your boundary. You're not second guessing, go, well, maybe I didn't make it really clear. You know, you've made it super, super clear. That way you can walk away from there. And then also, you know, in your case, in case this escalates, you know, from his behavior and you might need to take this to the level of protection order, I would document everything. You know, hopefully you send that text message and he's gone and he's on to someone else, hopefully. But the fact that he lives next door, you're always going to be on his mind, you know? And so it's not a great situation. I would also consider, you know, where you might want to live next, and not in a way that like you have to run away from here, but in a way like, okay, if this was the universe offering you the opportunity to move, to try something different, to move to a different place, to start some new chapter in your life, I would look at it from that kind of positive way, so that you don't feel like this person is ruining your life and they're forcing you to do this and you have to uproot your life. Look at it in the positive. This is like new beginnings, that it's like an opportunity and a calling for you to do something different, to change your life, to move somewhere else, to start some kind of new chapter. Sending you a big hug.